Hi everybody, this is G.I. Joe Lee. We're here at Detroit Comics with our friend Lee. So we're here to talk about Thor, Goddess of Thunder by Jason Aaron. Before we kind of dive into a review or a discussion about the book, how familiar are you with the character of Thor?
I go back to Jack Kirby's Thor,
Okay.
even when it was written in Old English. So I'm used to the '70s Kirby's Thor. So
Okay.
that was my introduction to Thor
Okay.
and the whole Norse mythology that centers around Thor.
Having a background with Thor, what were your first impressions of the Goddess of Thunder?
I thought they did a really good execution of the launch of a new character. I've seen them really fumble some launches, especially when they do gender changes or race changes, the ethnicity of characters, established characters. I thought this was a really smooth handoff. I thought it made sense given the current storyline in the Thor comic. I thought that the way they presented her was a very honest portrayal of the character, and even the Hammer, Mjolnir, having a role to play in it and a say in it as a pseudo kind of living entity. So it asked a lot of really good questions about what it was to be Thor, about the integrity of the person that is worthy, if thee be worthy to handle the power of Thor, and Thor as being a title that can be passed from one person to another if they be worthy. I thought they handled that really, really well. I think even as a standalone book, even if you're just getting into it, this is a great place to jump on.
Okay.
You know, I think that that with the way that they combine the stories to give you one compact narrative as an introduction, and then even after the whole Asgardian plot line was wrapped up with a bow, how she interacts with Earth superheroes and Earth supervillains. Mm-hmm. And there was a point in the story that I think that the female readers would appreciate. Maybe, I mean, I'm interested to see what other people's points of view are on it.
Which one?
When she interacts with Crusher Creel and his wife.
Titania?
Yeah. So that I thought was a very interesting moment that I didn't see coming.
Okay.
You know, where I'll give you this one pass. So I thought that was an interesting take on it. And again, I thought that it was handled really well. And I think that anybody that's like wants to start off as a jumping point for Thor, I think this is a really good way to do it. I think Marvel has done a really good job of hiring talented writers, even with Ms. Marvel, hiring people with authentic voices to speak as writers and getting top quality artwork. I mean, I don't think that as a graphic novel reader, I don't think there's anything more you can ask for than a well-drawn story that's superbly told.
You've kind of given us your impression of Titania as a woman, her reaction to a female Thor. What were your impressions of how Odin reacted from a male perspective?
Right. I think that they put a lot more comedy in Odin than I remember him from my run on Thor. I think that they're setting him up as a tyrant more than as a benevolent ruler. You know, it's like, it's what I say as Odin, you know, the All-Father, and, you know, so they set up a lot of male-female dynamics.
Is that characteristic of him being a Thor?
In the Kirby Stan Lee days, it was he is the supreme ruler and he's looking out for everybody. So he's the most powerful being and the most knowledgeable being in Asgard. So when he says something, you know, you have to follow it. But now they're setting it up as his ego and his blustering are what's going on, and that's what's driving it. So maybe it's moving away from a patriarchal type of rule, and I think them coming off of him leaving and then his wife taking over, you know, as the all-mother, you know, and the way that she ruled and the way that he ruled. And so they're showing the dynamics of contrast. But I just hope they don't fall into a stereotypical male-female stereotype, you know. And I think they're steering away from that because at one point, you know, they said, well, the frost giants are attacking Midgard. He's like, well, it's none of our business. We're by Asgard. And she says, let's get the army together and go. You know, and you think that would have been the role that he would have taken, always wanting to fight.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they flipped that. So that was an interesting take. I think that Odin as a character is handled more in a you know, you see more humanity in him than you would in the Jack Kirby comics, as he was just there as this looming, you know, parental figure, mythical figure, and you didn't really delve into, you know, the reasons why he did stuff. You know, in the old days, he's just, you know, he was there as a check against Thor. You know, Thor was the one that was always acting out and being emotional. And even in this one, they gave Thor a lot of depth by him losing Mjolnir and his sense of loss over it rejecting him, you know, and that breakup of that relationship, and then him coming around to understand that he had lost the right to wield it. And so I think they set up that dynamic really well, and they explore that really well in the comic.
Awesome. So in your opinion, do you think that Marvel's sort of gender switcheroo is successful?
I think on this execution it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this execution they did it really well. Sometimes you think they're doing it just to be doing it, but I think to breathe new life in the characters, you have to give that character a new perspective. I mean, I think the writers did a really good job. They weren't ham-fisted in it. They executed it well, and the transition to me made sense because they gave you the background for why it was happening. It wasn't just because.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, tell us what you think in the comments below. Like and share this video for more fun stuff from the Comic Book Syndicate. Thank you, Lee, very much for chatting with us about the Goddess of Thunder, and we'll see you again in the next one.